These videos from the Coachella Flophouse are made possible by Old Smoky Tennessee Moonshine, and we thank them for that. Ladies and gentlemen, run the jewels.
Hey, man.
That's their little cue to go crazy.
Right.
So let's start it off this way. The relationship between punk rock and hip hop is long. I mean, it goes back a long time. Why is it taking so long for somebody to come back and actually do it again in the way that you guys are doing it?
Well, I think that it's an energy that we share. You know, I think it was recognizable. You know, people come to our shows and they see how the energy is, and there's not too many other points of reference in music where you can punk rock is a really obvious one. You know, we growing up in New York, and rap music and punk rock were happening at the same time. I was a rap kid. I was into that, and I knew a lot of kids that were going to CBGBs and who were seeing, you know, who were in that scene. It was all in the New York hardcore scene, and it was all, for me, it all kind of happened right around the same time. But I think really all it is it's just that we all just want something out of the energy of the music and the performance of the music that's exhilarating, you know?
Right. New York, it's weird because in the old days, before you guys were born, when the Beastie Boys first got going, they were a hardcore band.
I was born.
I know, messing with you.
I take that compliment gladly. Thank you very much.
Killer Mike, the youngest person in the audience tonight.
Yeah.
But the goal back then is that they liked the whole punk rock thing, but I don't want to say it got boring, but it was like 3 chords and the truth after a while. Whatever. But trying to get the message across, when the Cool Hercs of the world came out, Grandmaster Flash and those guys, it was the punk rock of the ghetto. It really was, and all of us, young punk kids, wherever we were living, it was something like, wow, that's hardcore.
Because you can relate to the energy.
Yes.
You know, even if it wasn't from where you were from exactly, even if you didn't exactly get what the politics of the message were about because you grew up somewhere that it wasn't reflected exactly.
Correct.
You really understood the energy, and it's something that I think kids really want from music. You know, they want to connect to something more than just this is a song in a moment. They want it to mean something to their lives, and I think that when artists and great artists like, you know, Flash and Furious 5, when artists make music that connects on an emotional human level, even if it's not exactly what you're about, you can feel that energy, and that is something that we all share, right? You know, the actual love of ideas and something that means something. And I learned a lot just listening to rap music. You know,
I learned a lot of things. One of them, I was afraid to go to New York after a while. Because I just thought if you listen to all the lyrics, you're just like, man, why would I want to go there?
I think what people too, when I run the jewels in punk music, is we give a kick-ass show.
Right.
And I think that
it's hot, it's sweaty.
Yeah, and people take care of each other, you know. But I think that the other thing the unsaid thing that people kind of are drawing us about, like with hip hop and punk, or it's being perceived as refusing, is that we're just balls out going to give you a good show. And when I was young, I grew up in Atlanta. I grew up in the South. So you only had so many venues. So the same venues that the punk show was at, it's the same venue the hip-hop show. So you'd go early, stand around, watch the punk kids, and be like, wow, he just punched him in the face, and they're hugging. And then
he punched him in the face with love.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next thing you know, the Beasties will come out, and you're like, oh, so we're going to hit each other in the face. And, you know, so it makes sense. And I'm glad that music got deconstructed. The music industry got deconstructed enough so that people just don't care anymore. I think that's the ultimate.
There's an English artist called Dan Lasac and Scroobius Pip.
We're friends with him.
Okay. One of his best lines is, the 5 elements of hip-hop, guns, bitches, and bling were never part of the 5 elements of hip-hop. And there was a certain point it got to, hip-hop was not hip-hop anymore. But it was getting played on the radio, and it was just...
Well, hip-hop is like any other thing. It's American culture. Like, you know, punk and hip-hop were raw and edgy in the 80s. The 80s were raw and edgy. We had an explosion of a drug that came out of nowhere. We had a crazy president saying crazy things. And then in the 90s, this guy with a cool accent from Arkansas came, and Jobs kind of came and revitalized. We didn't know he was privatizing prisons to dump people in, but he did. It made people money, so the music got kind of reflective. And now we're back to busted. So
that's true.
I mean,
and that makes for good music.
You know, and there's something to keep in mind is that to some degree, like, look, people are going to be aspirational in their music. You know, I think that there are a lot of people that connected with rap music that didn't before when they heard things like Public Enemy and they heard things like, you know, that related to them, that they could understand on some intellectual level, and it meant more to them as what hip hop was than the other stuff. But you know, we're also talking about the same genre that was before. I mean, have you seen what Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five are wearing? You know, this
Well,
is,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like this is a
stage gear. Stage gear is one thing.
Well, listen,
the message was still the message.
But it's not a
the
political
message.
movement, man. It's an artistic expression, and I think that there are always going to be things that people really do relate to, and there'll be other things that don't. You know, there are people that don't have anything that really do relate to the idea of getting some money, and that's an important part of American culture. And I think that
money and bling.
Agreed, but to some degree, at the same time, it's still a reflection of the dementedness of our culture, and sometimes I believe that people point sometimes at the kids and the artists making the money as the source of these ideas, as opposed to the regurgitation of these ideas that have been pumped in their heads from watching whatever they're watching, be it their neighbors who have more money or a television show about rich people who have no other problems but their emotional conflicts with each other,
or their lack of emotional conflicts,
or whatever it is. But you know, point being, I think that I appreciate rap music in general, in total, and that doesn't mean that I relate to everything, and it doesn't mean that I even disagree with you. I just know that my perspective on it is nuanced to the point where I really do appreciate records that maybe it's not the type of stuff that I would do, but I do appreciate the record. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's, you know.
Well, we all do, I think, to a certain extent. How did you guys run into each other? Where did that happen?
We were buying gold and diamond jewelry at the same store.
Yeah.
No, we have
the gold and diamond emporium.
Yes,
as we were looking for 36-inch chains. No,
yes.
You
were.
We
Exactly.
had a
blinging at the same place.
Yeah.
I was trying on a fur coat. He said it looked okay.
It's not your color.
It's not your color. Don't wear it on stage. It's a bitch when you sweat. Yeah. But so no, seriously, what did you do? Did you like just through the scene?
We both have a friend, man, who happens to be like a successful TV exec. His name's Jason DeMarco. He is part of the reason you have such cool shows on Cartoon Network. And Jason came to me one day and was like, "Yo, Mike, how'd you like to make the record you always wanted to make?" I was like, "What's the record I made?" He said, "You can say anything." I was like, "Jay, I can say anything." He was like, "Yeah, I encourage it, anything." So we got together with his guy he knew named LP. LP and I got in the studio together, and then the first day we just pretty much had assumed we liked each other because our conversations were cool. We looked at the world alike. We liked the same types of music. Then we made some music together, and it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. We took a year. We made a record called Rap Music. That was my solo record. I featured on his solo record, Cancer for Cure. They dropped within a week of each other. We toured with each other. After that tour, we needed something to do together, an excuse to keep hanging around each other. We did an EP that was Run the Jewels 1 that turned into an album. We toured and said, okay, we'll get back to solo records. And afterwards, kids were like, yo, when's part 2 coming? and here we are sitting with you.
So let me I don't want to say he's a San Diegan, but he played with the San Diego band forever. Travis, old friend of ours. Played with Aquabats at one point. Ended up subbing for Blink's old drummer because he's people think he's a hardcore kid. He's like a musical nerd.
I just heard that story for the first time this year. I was amazed.
He would watch the Blink set and he learned it. So when their drummer came up sick one night, he just went up and he just
prodigious. Yeah,
that's what I heard.
Did it.
Yeah,
he looks super hardcore, but when he's almost like where did that thing come from? Because we know I don't want to say he'll play with anybody.
No,
but from the Aquabats to Blink and then
but he's a huge music fan. Yes, and he's a huge rap fan.
Almost to the point of a fault where he's like he goes and makes a lot of rap records sound 10 times better because he's added these things that you normally drum machines can't get to. And
sure,
if you use drum machines.
Sure, yeah, we use it all. I mean, we respected him just because of how cool he was and and he's just a nasty drummer. And at the end of the day, you can take all of that away, and he's a machine. And Mike was friends with him.
Yeah, I was friends and a fan already. A guy named Yellow Wolf, who's now out of Nashville, but was out of Alabama and Atlanta. Yellow Wolf is like a little bro and a friend of mine. We've done numerous collaborations. He introduced me to Trav after Trav and I just kind of went back cool on Twitter back and forth. I had already been a fan of Trav, Studevant, and Blink. Just I thought Blink was some in my rap myriad of stuff. They were one of those bands that popped up like, man, they cool. I always liked them. But I was like, the drummer always goes hard, even in the midst of their records. I was like, dude, be going hard. So when I heard Trav start collaborating with rappers, and in particular my man The Game, like a couple of years ago, I was just like, I gotta work with Trav. Like I already liked him, I already knew I loved cars like he did. I already knew he was really cool from meeting him through Wolf. But like when I heard him, I was like, I gotta work with him one day. And we found a reason to work with him because we found a record that was dope. He liked it. He hung out. I had interesting enough. We like in rap, we used to kind of beef. So you used to like calling somebody like, hey man, I got Tupac coming. Is Biggie still at the studio with you? But we already had
Zach
we already had Zach in the studio hanging with us, and I had called Trav just on the homeboy tip, like, I'm out in LA, man, first time hanging, let's hang out. And we hadn't even thought, like, do they get along? Turns out they were cool. We all hung out for a day. Zach was doing his part. Trav was listening to music. A couple weeks later, man, Trav was like, I'll play on something. Well, you say I'll play on something that day. We figured out what to play on. And
it took a while to find the right one, but he was just more than anything, man. We've all of our collaborations have been really just about vibe and friendship, and we really didn't reach outside of who we were very hard, very far, and
we're not searching for sounds to capture other audience or anything. We just think Travis
well,
dope.
You know,
we hung out.
Going back to Travis for a second, and besides Zach, those guys search out true artists.
Yeah.
And, go back to the same thing before. The Guns, Bitches, and Blings, not part of – he's been old school Cadillacs, not necessarily fully blinged out, right?
$120,000 cars. I'm a car guy.
No. I'm just saying. When they came out, they were
let's not shun those things.
$7,000.
Cadillacs are the reason Mercedes decided to get cool. Let's not.
That's true.
Just because you don't wear gold doesn't mean you don't have expensive habits. I ain't got a bit of jewelry on. I'm building a $50,000 Buick right now.
Which kind of Buick?
1972 Skylark.
Okay, all right.
What are you
going to drop in there?
See the source of my wife's agony.
What are you dropping in? What engine?
We got a 383 stroker in there, full suspension. We changed the whole pulley system, took it off, rotisseried it, framed it. Is doing the metal work now, and I'm sending it down to Alabama. I forgot my hot rod, goddamn.
But that's still not bling.
I'm in the Uber.
No, it's not bling.
If it was the Maybach. Or the Maybach or the Maybach?
No, but I am buying the S550 for my birthday.
$120,000 on a Buick. It's still not bling. It's still a Buick.
Yeah, it's still a Buick. But Buick is the luxury car of GM. You can't get, nothing wrong with people wanting to dress ugly.
No. I'm just saying. But there's a point where you're buying it because somebody else has it versus building it because you want it.
I agree.
And
but I would definitely buy an Audi.
But anyway, that being said, we have a show coming up. We have a thing called X Fest that we do every year. We're doing it for 30 years now. Tom Petty played our first one.
Cool.
That guy's...
He's amazing. Yeah.
This one, Public Enemy, Yellow Wolf, Modest Mouse, The Cult. I don't know what you guys are doing. Do you want to? You can be my guest. You don't even have to perform. Just come down and hang out.
Sounds great.
And watch The Cult. You like The Cult, right?
Yeah, man.
So this is the kind of station we are. We're the only station ever to play Public Enemy on the air back in the day.
Dope.
Because it's the respect for those guys as artists.
Chuck is a friend. He's an amazing person.
So that's and what you guys do reminds me of the honesty that was at that point.
Appreciate that.
Well, no, we're thanking you at this point. So
but I think that the truth of the matter is that we're hugely influenced by that era. One of the things that he left out is when he was asked what type of album he wanted to make. He wanted to make the type of record that the Bomb Squad would have made. He wanted to make the type of record that Ice Cube made with the Bomb Squad, or that
Absolutely.
He wanted to make something that could hold up to
Hank Shockley, all that
ideas.
stuff.
Absolutely. And Jay happened to know that and so does anyone who probably has followed me knows that the Bomb Squad is absolutely one of my biggest influences, 100%, and I've kind of kept that with me, and so it's a big deal to hear that from you. Because
it took me, by the way, 5 years to figure out that was a Maceo Parker sax line.
Right.
I thought it was a guitar.
Right.
I had no idea what it was. I'll tell you stories off mic because I'm going to end this interview because I'll tell the stories off mic.
This has been the best interview of the day. By the
way. We're talking about Cadillacs.
Thank you.
And we're talking about the Bomb Squad, and do you know how the studio they recorded at Chungking Studios, most of that stuff. You know how it got its name? The guy who owned the studio's name is John King. It was very close to Chinatown. And when he called for Chinese food, where are you saying? It's John King Studios. John King? No, John King. Chungking? No, John King. Okay, fine, it's Chungking. So he changed the name of the studio to Chungking because they couldn't pronounce John King.
I always wondered that.
So there you go, Chungking Studios, the guy who owns it. John
Man, that's
King.
so cool.
That's
man.
cool. Yeah.
Right? Isn't that-
I'm looking forward
That's
to
amazing.
like a day when everybody I talk about with rap like has cool gray beards and hair. Like, man, this is
Now
has
take that
been
as a
dream.
compliment.
No, definitely is. No, as I find more grays in me, like this is
Yeah,
just.
we're on our way. B.
It's what I
Yeah.
tell people all the time. Like the coolest thing about when rap and punk were together is that everybody was together. There was no differentiation. Is this urban?
We
Is
still
this
are.
rock?
We still are.
And I
but
love
there's
that.
only a few people that we respect.
And I love
that's
that.
all.
And
That's
I
all I'm
love
saying.
that.
And you guys are people that we respect.
Thank
Us
you.
old punk rockers.
Thank you, man. It's shouts
Killer
out
Mike,
to my
thank you
boy
very much.
Wolfie,
LP,
man.
thank you very much.
Love,
Run
man.
the jewels.
Yeah.
91X.